I was in the middle of presenting my Q4 strategy when my manager interrupted. "Let's skip this. He's just copying what I already suggested in private." The room fell silent as he smirked and added, "You're good at following orders, that's all." What he didn't know was that the deck was watermarked with a timestamped AI authorship log proving I'd built it from scratch. And when the VP checked it live, he just said, "Really, Frank? You want to explain this?" That's when everything stopped. Let me back up. My name's Marcus, I'm 34, and I work at a mid-sized logistics firm based in Columbus, Ohio. I'd been with the company for 5 years and was recently promoted to strategy analyst, reporting directly to Frank, my manager. Frank was tolerable at first. We had a decent rhythm going. But the second I got that promotion, something changed in him. It was subtle at first. I'd finish reports and he'd say, "Good, but let's add this idea I had," then take credit when he passed it up the chain. At first, I let it slide. I wasn't interested in office politics. I liked my work and thought if I just kept delivering solid results, people would notice. But Frank got bolder. When I submitted a regional growth proposal, he gave me feedback like too wordy, then presented the same thing with no changes to the VP during the monthly leadership call. I didn't even know he'd taken it. But this moment, Q4 strategy presentation, was supposed to be different. I'd been working on it every night for 3 weeks. It wasn't just some Excel charts and vague goals. I ran forecasts, analyzed performance from 2020 to 2024, built predictive cost models, layered in AI recommendations, and structured it into a clean, sharp narrative. I used a tool I pay for myself, a private GPT-based system with a built-in watermark and timestamp logging every change, every slide, every paragraph, every chart. I did this because I knew Frank was going to try something. So there we are, Thursday morning. Big conference room. VP of operations, senior directors, even the CFO is dialed in. I'm on slide 3 when Frank cuts me off. "Let's skip this. He's just copying what I already suggested in private." I blinked. My throat locked up. Then he laughed and added, "You're good at following orders, that's all." The room went still. My stomach twisted. The CFO stopped sipping his coffee. The VP looked from me to Frank. And that's when I did it. I calmly clicked out of the presentation and opened the embedded authorship log. Full screen. Watermarked. Timestamped. Slide-by-slide creation record. Every draft and revision under my name. My login. My private license. The VP leaned forward. "Really, Frank? You want to explain this?" Frank froze, then stammered. "It was a collaboration. We bounced ideas. Maybe he forgot I mentioned that approach in a 1:1. The VP didn't buy it. "You know this deck has been circulating since last Thursday, right? Marcus sent it directly to me and Lisa. I reviewed it Sunday. You weren't even on the thread." Frank's face turned red. He looked at me like I just stabbed him. But I wasn't done. I pulled up a side-by-side, the strategy one submitted and the one he had refined for his own director application a few months back. Same structure, same key phrases. The room got quieter. Lisa, one of the senior directors, asked the VP, "Has this kind of thing happened before?" The VP looked at me. I nodded. Frank tried again. "Look, we're a team. This isn't about ownership, it's about execution. Marcus is talented, but I shaped the strategy too." I stayed calm. "With all due respect, sir, this isn't about teamwork. It's about ethics. I work hard. I don't deserve to be called a follower in front of leadership for work I built from the ground up." That's when it flipped. The VP asked Frank to step outside. When he came back 20 minutes later, he looked pale. He didn't say a word. HR called me later that afternoon. They wanted a full timeline. Turns out I wasn't the first. 2 others in our department had left in the last year because of creative disputes with Frank. One of them even cited plagiarism. Only difference? They hadn't documented it. I had receipts. 3 weeks later, Frank was moved to a different department. 2 months after that, he decided to pursue other opportunities. I got promoted, but it wasn't even about that. It was about finally standing up and not letting someone rewrite my work, steal my voice, and insult me in front of others. Funny thing is, Frank probably thought AI would help him take shortcuts. What he didn't realize, it helped me keep track of everything. He wanted to play office politics. I came with proof. After Frank left, things were quiet. For a while, I was promoted to strategy manager, and honestly, I felt good. Respected. People I'd barely spoken to before started including me in calls and asking for my input. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Frank didn't go quietly. 2 weeks after his departure, I started noticing weird stuff. First, an old proposal I'd written months ago somehow leaked onto a competitor's website. They'd rebranded it, but the bones were clearly mine. I knew because the data model I used had a very specific error, a wrong cell formula I'd since fixed but never deleted from the archive. First, I thought it was coincidence. Then came the email. It was from a burner account. No name, no reply option. Just one sentence. Not everything you build stays yours forever. I forwarded it to IT and compliance. They said they'd investigate, but nothing came back. 2 days later, I was in the break room when Kevin, another manager, came in looking tense. He asked me, "Hey man, did you really report Frank to HR? Or was it just a misunderstanding?" I was caught off guard. "Yeah, I reported the plagiarism. You saw the presentation, right?" He looked uneasy. "That's not what I heard. Someone said you set him up. You used AI to mimic his style and made it look like he stole from you." That hit me like a punch. Now I knew what was happening. Frank was still talking to people, probably feeding lies to anyone who'd listen, painting me like some tech-savvy manipulator who got him fired. At first, I didn't care what people thought, but the whispers didn't stop. Then I noticed something worse. My project started getting delayed. Approvals sat in limbo. Lisa, who once praised my work, suddenly became cold and short in meetings. During one check-in, she said, "Marcus, are you sure you're not spreading yourself too thin? Some teams are saying you've been difficult to work with." That floored me. I'd done nothing but stay professional. It didn't stop there. One night, around 9 p.m., I was working late and stepped out to grab coffee. When I came back, my office door was slightly ajar. I always locked it. Nothing seemed stolen. But I checked my laptop and saw it had been restarted. I went straight to IT. They confirmed that someone had tried to access my files. 5 failed password attempts, then rebooted the system. Security footage showed someone in a hoodie walking past the hallway cam. Face covered. Badge access was used, but whoever did it spoofed an inactive contractor's ID. Still no proof it was Frank, but I knew it was him. He was trying to erase me. I kept my head down and focused on work, but the pressure started building. I was sleeping less, eating less, snapping at my girlfriend, Morgan, for no reason. One night, she finally said, "You're not okay, Marcus. You haven't been okay since this started." She was right. That weekend, I opened a private folder and pulled up the files I'd started keeping. Notes, screenshots, emails. I hadn't wanted to go down this path, but Frank wasn't going to stop. He wanted me out, broken, paranoid. But I wasn't going to play defense anymore. I started looking into where he'd landed. Turns out he'd joined a startup logistics firm out of Dayton, small team, big ambitions. I recognized a few names from LinkedIn, old coworkers. 2 of them had already blocked me. I made a decision. If Frank wanted to come at me from the shadows, I'd shine a light on him. And I wasn't going to do it alone. I started by reaching out to someone I hadn't talked to in over a year, Daniel. He used to work under Frank too. Quiet guy, smart. Left suddenly about 10 months ago. At the time, we were told it was a family emergency. But now I knew better. I messaged him on LinkedIn, asked if we could talk. To my surprise, he called me back that same night. His first words? "I was wondering when someone else would see through Frank's act." We talked for over an hour. He told me how Frank used his ideas, pitched them to higher-ups, then blamed Daniel when things failed. Daniel said Frank even accidentally copied parts of his personal documents into department-wide emails, then denied it when Daniel confronted him. The final straw? Frank erased Daniel's name off a major project just before submitting it to corporate. Daniel filed a complaint. HR shrugged it off, said it was a miscommunication, so he quit. Now Daniel worked at a tech firm in Cincinnati, and guess what? He'd saved everything. Emails, project drafts, even voice memos he'd recorded after every shady meeting with Frank. I asked if he'd be willing to send anything relevant to what I was going through. He didn't hesitate. The next morning, my inbox lit up. There were over 30 files. Some small screenshots, email chains, but some were huge. Like an audio file of Frank telling Daniel, "No one cares who did the work. They care who presents it. And worse, you're smart, but you don't know how to play the game. That's why people like me win." I felt sick listening to it. Not because I was surprised, but because it confirmed everything. Frank wasn't just manipulative. He believed he deserved credit for other people's work. This was gold. But I needed more. I needed someone current from that Dayton startup he joined. So I did something risky. I applied for a job at that same company under a fake name. I used a burner email, created a fake LinkedIn with a solid background, and submitted a polished resume. No real goal of working there. I just wanted a look inside. I didn't expect to get called, but I did. 2 days later, the HR rep, Natalie, scheduled a phone screen. We talked for 15 minutes. Then she asked me a strange question. "Just to clarify, have you worked with Frank before? You're in the same region. He mentioned knowing someone with your background." I froze, but kept my voice steady. "No, the name doesn't ring a bell." She moved on. That told me something. Frank was paranoid. He was still watching. Maybe he'd seen my profile when I viewed the company's page. Maybe he was feeding HR names to watch out for. But now I had a direct line into the company. That night I checked Glassdoor. I'd looked before, but this time I dug deeper. Buried under generic reviews were 3 brutally honest ones. Short, anonymous, and recent. One said, "Toxic management. One guy acts like he owns your ideas. Do not trust anyone who calls himself a visionary." Another, "If your manager talks more than you do in your own project meeting, run." Then I found the third. It just said, "Frank is here. That's your warning." I screenshotted everything. By now, I had enough to go back to my own HR department. But I didn't trust them. I'd already seen how slow they were, how they brushed things under the rug. So I went higher. I called an old mentor, Jennifer, who'd been VP of strategy before she left the company last year. She now worked for a major consulting firm in Chicago. She liked me, trusted me. I sent her everything. The authorship logs, the emails, the Glassdoor screenshots, the files from Daniel, the audio clips. She called me back after 2 hours. Her voice was sharp, focused. "You're sitting on a landmine, Marcus. If this leaks, it won't just blow back on Frank. It'll hurt your company too. They protected him. They ignored complaints. There's a pattern." Then she said something that changed everything. "I know someone at the board level. Let me talk to them." Quietly. Now it was bigger than Frank. I'd lit a fuse, and it was burning fast. Next, ChatGPT said, "It took exactly 13 days for everything to catch fire." Jennifer kept her word. She passed the information to someone on the board, discreetly. I don't know who it was, and she never told me. All I know is that sometime around the second week of May, an internal investigation launched at both companies, mine and Frank's new startup in Dayton. I wasn't told formally at first, but I could feel it. I was suddenly getting polite check-ins from senior HR folks who never spoke to me before. They were just following up on my earlier complaint. Suddenly, the same people who had brushed me off months earlier were treating me like I was made of glass. But the real drama happened on their end. Frank's startup? Total meltdown. Turns out, Frank hadn't just stolen ideas. He'd built their entire investor pitch deck using materials lifted from me, Daniel, and a couple others who'd submitted proposals years ago. He had this habit of collecting work, waiting for people to leave, then dressing it up like it was his own. But he screwed up. Because my presentation, it had a hidden watermark not just in the author log, but embedded into the image files. I'd used an AI graphic tool that leaves traceable digital fingerprints. That same deck, slide layout, charts, exact phrasing, showed up word for word in his Startup Series A fundraising materials. Investors started asking questions. Then lawyers got involved. By mid-June, I got an email from an attorney representing one of the investors. They wanted a written statement confirming I'd created the materials independently, and that I had no knowledge of them being reused. I sent them everything. And then I waited. I thought that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. A month later, I got a call from Daniel, and he was laughing. "Dude, you're not gonna believe this," he said. "Frank's divorce just went public." I blinked. What? Apparently, his wife, who I'd only seen once at a holiday party, had filed for divorce and filed a complaint through the courts citing reputational damage to the family. The legal documents had been picked up by a couple of business gossip sites. Frank's personal life wasn't just imploding. It was on full display. From what Daniel heard through an old contact, his wife had found out about everything. Not just the plagiarism, but also how he'd lied to her for years. Lied about why he got promotions, about how much he really made, even about which ideas were his. The worst part? They had a teenage daughter, 16. Apparently, she was the one who found the articles online. Asked him directly, "Did you really steal from your team?" He told her, "It's complicated." She didn't believe him. She moved in with her mom. That same week, the Dayton startup pulled out of their Series A. The investors didn't want to be tied to anything with legal baggage. The company laid off half their staff. Frank was asked to resign. I saw it on LinkedIn first. His title quietly disappeared. No goodbye post. Just a blank space where Chief Strategy Officer used to be. But I still wasn't done. Because the internal audit at my company finally wrapped up. The board issued a statement. Quiet, buried in the employee portal, but it said what needed to be said. We acknowledge that concerns were raised and not acted upon with the seriousness they deserved. We are revisiting our oversight and ethics reporting systems to ensure accountability and transparency moving forward. No names, but everyone knew. Then HR offered me something unexpected. Not just a raise, not just a title bump. They offered me the chance to lead a new internal review board, to help rebuild the company's ethics process from the inside. They wanted someone who had been through the fire, someone who understood what silence costs. I said yes. A few weeks later, I ran into Lisa in the hallway, the director who'd once pulled away when she believed Frank's lies. She stopped me. "I owe you an apology," she said, looking me in the eye. "I believed him. I shouldn't have." I nodded. "Thanks for saying that." She looked down. "We all thought he was untouchable." I smiled, just barely. "So did he."